The alarm screamed through the cargo. Ship like a dying animal, Minyu's hands flew across the pilot controls, his eyes locked on the scanner. 3 unknown vessels surrounded the horizon's edge, their dark shapes blocking out the stars. Yuna, get to the emergency pods, Minyu shouted over his shoulder. The young woman with dark hair tied back didn't move from her station. Yuna's fingers danced over her xenobiology console, trying to identify the ships. These readings, I've never seen anything like this. Max, the Belgian Malinoa, sitting beside Minyu's chair, stood up. His ears pointed forward, a low growl rumbled in his chest, the dog's brown eyes fixed on the viewport, watching the alien ships draw closer. Everyone, this is Taeyang in security, a voice crackled over the comm. Unknown borders are cutting through the hull. Get to the transmission ended with a horrible sound, then silence. Bowie stumbled onto the bridge, her engineer's uniform covered in grease. The young woman's face was pale. They're inside. They cut through 3 in titanium-like paper. Minyu stood up, his military training taking over. He'd left the service 2 years ago, but the instincts remained. Lock the bridge. Yuna sent a distress signal. Baumi, kill the main power. Maybe they'll think we're dead. Max pressed against Minyu's leg. The dog's training told him danger was close. Minyu's hand dropped to Max's head, scratching behind his ears. Good boy. Stay close. The bridge lights died. Emergency. Reds bathed everything in crimson. Through the viewport, Minyu watched one of the alien ships extend a tube toward their hull. It latched on with a metallic clang that echoed through the entire ship. Signal won't get far, Yuna said quietly. They're jamming everything. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Not human footsteps. These sounded wrong. Too many legs clicking against metal. Like insects. The bridge door exploded. Inward, Minyu grabbed Yuna and pulled her down behind a console. Bowie screamed. The creatures that entered were nightmares made real. They stood 7 ft tall on 4 legs with 2 more limbs that ended in claws. Their bodies looked like enormous insects covered in purple, black shells that gleamed in the red light. Multiple eyes clustered on their angular heads. When they spoke, the sounds were clicks and hisses that made Minyu's teeth hurt. Max barked once, sharp and loud. He placed himself between Minyu and the aliens, lips pulled back to show his teeth. One of the creatures pointed a device at Max. Beam of light scanned the dog from nose to tail. The alien made a chittering sound that might have been laughter. It lowered its weapon. Non-sentient animal companion, a mechanical voice translated from one alien's chest device. Emotional support creature, harmless. Another alien, larger than the others, with more elaborate markings on its shell, stepped forward. Its multiple eyes studied the 3 humans. Primitive specimens, Category 7. Intelligence suitable for labor markets. Please, Yuna said, standing up slowly, with her hands raised. We're peaceful. We mean no harm. The large alien's device clicked. Resistance irrelevant. You are property now. 2 aliens grabbed Minyu by his arms. Their claws were cold and hard. Max lunged forward, barking furiously. One alien kicked at the dog, but Max dodged easily. Max, no, Minyu commanded in Korean. Sit, stay. Dog obeyed immediately, though every muscle in his body trembled with the need to fight. The large alien observed this. The primitive demonstrates basic Animal training, curious the creature. May accompany them. It amuses me that such simple beings require comfort. Animals. Other aliens dragged Yuna and Bowie. Forward, Bowie was crying. Yuna's face was set in hard lines, but her hands shook. They were forced through the corridors of their own ship. Minyu saw scorch marks on the walls. In the security station, he glimpsed Taeyong's body and had to look away. His friend was gone. The aliens herded them through the connecting tube into their ship. Everything here was dark and angular, built for creatures that saw in different light. The air smelled of chemicals and something else, something alien that made Minyu's stomach turn. Max walked beside Minyu, his ears flat against his head. The dog stayed calm, but his eyes missed nothing. Minyu noticed how Max looked at every door they passed, every turn they made. His partner was mapping the route. They were pushed into a large cell. The walls were some kind of clear material, tough as steel but transparent. Minyu could see other cells around them. Most were empty. One held what looked like a bird creature from a planet Minyu didn't recognize. It cowered in the corner. The alien sealed the cell door. The large one, clearly in charge, studied them. Through the barrier you will be processed. The mechanical translation said, your species will be evaluated. If suitable, you will be sold. If not, you will be recycled for biological materials. We're not animals, Yuna said, her voice stronger now. We're intelligent beings. We have rights. The aliens. Multiple eyes blinked in a pattern. You travel in primitive metal vessels. You keep non-sentient creatures for emotional comfort. You wage wars on your own kind. Your intelligence is questionable. It turned to leave, then paused. The animal may remain. It will keep you docile. We have learned that primitive species are easier to manage when given their comfort objects. The aliens left. Their clicking footsteps faded down the corridor. Minyu sank to the floor, his back against the wall. Max immediately came to him, pressing close. The dog's warm weight was real and solid in this nightmare. They think we're animals, Bowie whispered. She was hugging her knees, rocking slightly. Yuna paced the cell. They're wrong about that, and they're wrong about Max. Minyu looked up at her. What do you mean? They scanned him. They categorized him as non-sentient. They think he's like a living teddy bear, something that just exists to make us feel better. Yuna crouched beside Max, studying him. They have no idea what dogs really are, do they? Minyu's hand moved to Max's head, his fingers finding the familiar places behind the dog's ears. No, they don't understand that. All. Max looked up at Minyu. In the dog's brown eyes, Minyu saw intelligence, loyalty, and something else. Readiness. Max had been trained for combat, for protection, for missions that required absolute trust between handler and dog. The aliens saw a pet. They had no idea they'd allowed a trained warrior to walk freely among their prisoners. That's their first mistake, Minyu said quietly. Outside the cell, the alien ship hummed with dark purpose. Somewhere ahead, a station waited where humans would be sold like cargo. But in this cell, a man, 2 women, and a dog were already planning. The aliens thought they'd captured simple primitives and their emotional support animal. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The first night in the cell was the longest. Minyu couldn't sleep. He sat with his back to the wall, watching the corridor through the transparent Barrier, Max lay beside him, the dog's head resting on Minyu's leg. Every few minutes, Max's ears would twitch at some distant sound in the alien ship. Yuna had finally stopped pacing an hour ago. She sat near Bowie, who had cried herself into exhausted sleep. The young engineer's soft breathing was the only peaceful sound in their prison. "We need to understand them," Yuna whispered, careful not to wake Bowie. "These Krelith, that's what the translator called them." Minyu nodded. "What do you know about insectoid species?" "Nothing like this. They're sophisticated, but—" Yuna gestured at the cell around them. "They don't understand pack bonding. Did you notice when they saw you with Max? They thought it was weakness. They think we keep dogs because we're emotionally fragile. Let them think that." Minyu scratched Max's ears. The dog's tail wagged slightly. "What else? They operate in a hive structure. Orders from the top, absolute obedience below. They don't question their leaders." Yuna pulled her knees up to her chest. "That makes them strong but predictable." Morning came, though it was hard to tell. On an alien ship, the lights in the corridor grew brighter, shifting from dim red to harsh white. Guards walked past, their multiple legs clicking in rhythm. One stopped at their cell. This guard was smaller than the one who'd captured them, with fewer markings on its shell. It studied them like someone might watch fish in a tank. Max stood up, placing himself between the guard and the humans. He didn't bark or growl. He just watched. The guard made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. It moved on. "They really do think he's harmless," Yuna said, amazement in her voice. The day got worse. 2 guards came and took Minyu. First, they led him down corridors that twisted and turned. Max tried to follow, but one guard blocked him. "The animal stays," the mechanical translation said. Minyu gave Max a hand signal, one they'd practiced hundreds of times in training. "Stay, watch. Remember." Max sat, but his eyes tracked every movement. They took Minyu to a room filled with strange machines. For the next hour they tested him. They measured how strong he was, how fast he could run, how well he could solve simple puzzles. They shocked him with electricity to see his pain tolerance. Minyu gritted his teeth and endured. The large alien from before, the commander, observed it all. Adequate physical capabilities, limited intelligence, suitable for manual labor. They brought him back to the cell. Max was waiting right by the door. The dog checked Minyu over, nose working, making sure his human was okay. Then they took Yuna. She was gone for 2 hours. When she returned, her face was pale, but she walked with her head high. They'd done the same tests to her. Bowie went next. When the young engineer came back, she was shaking. "They're monsters," she whispered. "They don't see us as people at all." That afternoon, a different guard appeared. This one carried food. If the gray paste in the containers could be called food, the guard opened a small slot in the barrier and pushed 3 containers through. Then it tossed something else into the cell, a small chunk of what looked like meat. It landed near Max. For the creature, the guard's translator said, "We are not cruel. We feed all livestock appropriately." The guard left. Max sniffed at the meat, but didn't eat it. He looked at Minyu, waiting for permission. "They think you're livestock," Minyu said quietly. "That's good, Max. That's very good." They shared the gray paste among the 3 of them. It tasted like nothing and everything bad at once. Max got some too. The meat sat ignored in the corner as the ship's lights dimmed. Again indicating night, a sound came. From the cell next to theirs, a voice. Human, hello, is someone there? Yuna rushed to the wall. Yes, we're human. There are 3 of us, thank God. The voice was male, exhausted. I'm Jay. They captured my research vessel 3 weeks ago. I thought I was the only one left. 3 weeks, Bowie's voice cracked. How do we survive 3 weeks in here? You learn their patterns, you stay quiet, you wait. G paused. They're taking us to a hub station. 2 more days, maybe 3. That's where they sell the specimens. Minyu moved closer to the wall. Jiho, have you learned anything about them? Their language, their weaknesses? Some. I was a linguist before. This. The Krevlith have a rigid command structure, the one with the most markings on his shell, that's Overseer Cliffvar. He runs this ship. Below him are the warriors, then the workers. Jiho's voice grew stronger, more focused. They're efficient but arrogant. They think anything that isn't Krevith is inferior. That arrogance could be useful, Yuna said. Maybe. Jiho went quiet for a moment. Is that a dog I hear? Max had been pacing the cell, pausing at the door, sniffing at the air gaps around the barrier. His routine was methodical, purposeful. Yes, Minyu said. His name is Max. He's my partner. They let you keep a pet? Jiho sounded surprised. They don't think he's a threat, just an emotional support animal. Jiho actually laughed, though it was a tired sound. Then they're fools. Over the next day, they talked to Jiho. Whenever the guards weren't nearby, he taught them Kreth words and phrases. The sounds were hard to make with human mouths, but Yuna was good at it. She could mimic the clicks and hisses almost perfectly. Minyu watched the guards more carefully now. He counted their patrols every 4 hours. The same pattern, 2 guards walking together, checking each cell. Then nothing for long stretches. Max watched. 2. The guards had stopped paying attention to the dog completely. When they passed, Max would stand and observe them, but they didn't even look at him anymore. He was furniture to them. Background noise. That was when Minyu realized something important. On the second day of watching, Max did something interesting. When the guards passed, the dog waited exactly 30 seconds. Then he walked to the cell door and pawed at it gently. The barrier didn't open. It was locked tight, but Max had tested it. The guards hadn't noticed. They were 20 ft down the corridor, checking other cells. Max came back to Minyu and sat. His tail wagged. Once you're thinking, Minyu whispered. To the dog, you're planning. That evening, a guard passed with a cart of supplies. It stopped at their cell, pushed more food through the slot, then moved on. Max watched it go. The dog's eyes tracked the cart, the guards' movements, the route it took. When Ji spoke that night, his voice was different, hopeful. I've been thinking. They're confident. They don't expect resistance from us. And they definitely don't expect anything from your dog. No. Minyu agreed. They really don't. Then maybe, just maybe, we have a chance. Minyu looked at Max. The dog sat alert, ears forward, eyes bright. 40,000 of evolution had created the bond between humans and dogs. 40,000 years of hunting together, fighting together, surviving together. The Krelith studied humans for their intelligence, their strength, their basic biology, but they never studied the bond. They didn't understand that Max wasn't just an animal. He was a partner trained for combat, loyal to death, capable of understanding complex commands. The aliens saw a pet that needed to be fed and ignored. They had no idea what they'd really brought onto their ship. Yes, Minyu said quietly, his hand resting on Max's head. We have a chance. Outside the cell, the alien ship continued its journey through the dark. In 2 days, they would reach the station. In 2 days, humans would be sold as slaves to the highest bidder, unless 3 humans, 1 linguist and 1 very smart dog could do something about it. The game was just beginning. On the 3rd day, Max started exploring. It began during the morning patrol. The guards walked past, clicked their mandibles at each other in conversation, and continued down the corridor. They didn't even glance at Max as he stood near the transparent barrier. 30 seconds after they disappeared around the corner, something strange happened. The barrier flickered just for a moment. Maybe a power fluctuation, maybe something else. Max pawed at the door. To everyone's shock, it slid open and no way, Bowie breathed. Minyu moved fast. He grabbed the edge of the barrier and pushed. It opened wider. Not much, maybe 6 in, enough for Max to squeeze through. The locks might be on a different power system, Yuna said quickly, if the main barriers failed. For just a second, Max, come, Minyu commanded in Korean. The dog didn't move. He looked at Minyu, then at the opening, then back at Minyu. His meaning was clear. He wants to scout. Jiho's voice came from the next cell. Let him go. The guards think he's harmless. If they see him wandering, they'll just put him back. Minyu's instinct screamed against it. Max was his responsibility. But his training, his military training, said Jiho was right. They needed information. Go, Minyu said softly, using the hand signal for patrol. Careful. Come back. Max slipped through the opening. Minyu pulled the barrier closed behind him. It sealed with a soft click. For 10 minutes they waited. Bowie chewed her fingernails. Yuna paced. Minyu sat perfectly still, though inside his heart was racing. Then Max returned. He appeared around the corner, trotting calmly like he belonged there. He pawed at their barrier. Minyu pushed it open. It moved easily now, like the lock was broken, and Max slipped back inside. Good boy, Minyu whispered, hugging the dog. What did you see? Max, of course, couldn't answer, but over the next hour, as they watched the dog's behavior, Minyu started to understand. Max kept looking in one direction. He would pace 3 steps, stop, look that way, then pace back 3 steps, a specific distance. 3 cells down. Yuna said he's trying to tell us something is 3 cells down. That afternoon Max went out again. This time he was gone longer. When he came back, something was in his mouth, a small piece of torn fabric. Minyu took it. There was writing on it, scratched in something dark, maybe blood. 2 more humans here, soldier and doctor. Huh? H. Bowie looked at the message. Who's H? Another survivor. G called from his cell. This changes things if there are more of us. Max went out again that evening. When he returned, he had another piece of cloth. This one said, "We're ready. What's the plan?" Minyu sat down thinking. He pulled out his bootlace and tied a knot in it. Then another, 5 knots total. He gave it to Max. Take this to H, he said, gesturing down the corridor. 3 cells, go. Max took the bootlace gently in his mouth and disappeared through the barrier. What do the knots mean? Yuna asked. 5 days. That's my guess for when we reach the station. We need to be ready before Then Jiho's voice came through the wall. The Krelith are creatures of habit. They do the same patrols at the same times. They check the cells but never expect trouble. We could use that. We need weapons, Minyu said. I've been watching them, Bowie said quietly. Everyone turned to her. The young engineer looked up, meeting their eyes. The guards carry these rod-like things on their belts. They use them to unlock doors and control systems. If we could get one, how? Yuna asked. Bowie smiled. It was a small, bitter smile. They think we're stupid. They think we're animals. So we act like animals, Max returned. Without the bootlace, he looked pleased. With himself, tail wagging, Minyu scratched his ears and the dog leaned into his touch. That night they made their move. When the guards came for their patrol, Bowie started screaming. She clutched her stomach and fell to the floor, writhing in pain. Help! Something's wrong, please. The guards stopped. They looked at each other, mandibles clicking. Then one approached the cell. It studied Bowie through the barrier. Human, female in distress. Its translator said, possible illness. Please, Yuna begged, playing her part. She needs help. She needs medicine. The guard's companion said something in the Kriath language. They clicked back and forth, debating. Finally, the first guard took out its control rod and pointed it at the barrier lock. The barrier started to open. Max moved like lightning. The dog shot through the opening before it was even fully raised. Straight at the guard's legs. He didn't bite. Minyu had signaled him not to. Instead, Max tangled himself in the guard's four legs, barking frantically. The guard stumbled, trying to kick the dog away. Its companion moved to help. That's when Minyu struck. He lunged out of the cell and grabbed the control rod from the first guard's belt. The alien tried to grab it back, but Minyu was faster. He rolled away, came up running, and dove back into the cell. The barrier slammed shut. The guards made furious clicking sounds. They tried to open the barrier with the second rod, but Minyu had already used the stolen one to lock it from the inside. The override wasn't working. Clever primitives, the translator spat. You gain nothing, you are still trapped. But they weren't, not really, because now Minyu could open their cell whenever he wanted. More importantly, he could open other cells. The guards left, clicking angry commands into their communication devices. Reinforcements would come soon. We need to move fast. Jiho called, let the others out, free us all. Minyu pointed the control rod at Jiho's cell. The barrier opened. A man stumbled out, blinking in the corridor light. He had a scraggly beard and hollow eyes, but his smile was real. Thank you, Jiho said. Thank you. They opened the cell. 3 down. 2 people came out. One was a woman in her 40s with short hair and steady hands. She looked like someone used to crisis. The other was a young man, maybe 25, with military bearing despite his ragged clothes. I'm sorry, the woman said. Doctor, this is Haiyan Wu. He was a weapons specialist. Before they took him, Haiyan Wu looked at Minyu, then at Max, understanding passed between them. Your military was you. They killed my unit. I survived. Huh. Wu and LT Unk and GT's face hardened. I want payback. Get in line, Minyu said. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Multiple guards moving fast, back in the cells. Sora said quickly, they don't know we have the control rod. If they see empty cells, they'll lock everything down tighter. She was right. Everyone scrambled back into their cells. Minyu sealed the barriers from inside using the rod. To anyone looking, it would seem like nothing had changed. 6 guards appeared, weapons drawn. They checked each cell. All the prisoners were where they should be. The guards clicked at each other. Confused, they inspected the lock on Minyu's cell. It looked normal. System malfunction, one finally concluded. Nothing more. They left, but now they were suspicious. The easy days were over. That night Minyu lay awake, thinking. Max curled beside him, the dogs breathing slow and steady. In cells around them, 5 other humans waited. 6 people total, plus 1 dog against a ship full of alien slavers. It should have been hopeless, but Minyu looked at Max and smiled. The Krevel had made a critical mistake. They'd studied humans. They'd measured human strength and intelligence. They'd cataloged human weaknesses, but they never studied what humans could do together. They didn't understand teams, partnerships, or the bonds that made groups stronger than individuals, and they definitely didn't understand Max. Tomorrow they would start planning in earnest. Haiyan Wu knew weapons, Sora knew medicine and biology. Jiho spoke enough Krevel to eavesdrop. Yuna understood their alien captors. Bowie could work with any technology. And Minyu knew tactics, plus they had Max, a dog that the guards ignored. A dog that could move freely. A dog that could carry messages, create distractions, and when needed, fight. The aliens thought they'd captured 6 weak humans and 1 harmless pet. They were about to learn the truth about humanity's best friend. The hub station appeared on the 2nd day after they'd stolen the control rod. Through a small viewport in the corridor, Minyu caught a glimpse of it, a massive structure of metal and lights floating against the stars. Ships of a dozen different designs clustered around it like insects around a corpse. That's where they'll sell us, Jiho said. Quietly, he stood in Minyu's cell now. They'd been meeting in groups, planning, while Max kept watch in the corridor. The dog would bark once if guards approached, giving them time to scatter back to their cells. Then we move. Before we dock, Minyu said. Haiyan Wu nodded. The young soldier had been studying the ship's layout every time he was allowed out. The armory is 2 levels down. I've seen guards going there. It's not heavily defended because they don't expect threats from inside. What about the bridge? Yuna asked. Top level forward section. That's where Overseer Cliffvar runs everything. Yanwu and LT Unk and GT's jaw tightened. That's where we need to go eventually. Sora the doctor had been quiet. Now she spoke up. I've been thinking about Krellis. Biology, they're insectoid, which means their nervous systems work differently than ours. I might be able to create something from the medical supplies they let me have, something that would affect them but not us. A weapon. Bowie's eyes widened. More like a deterrent, make them sick, slow them down. It won't kill them, but it might give us an advantage. Max barked once from the corridor. Everyone froze. They heard the clicking of guards approaching. Jiho ran to his cell. 3 down. Haiyan Wu and Sora disappeared into their cell. Minyu sealed his barrier just as 2 guards rounded the corner, but these guards were different. They carried larger weapons. Their shells had more elaborate markings. Attention specimens, the lead guard's translator announced. We arrive at hub station in 6 hours. You will be processed and prepared for auction. Resistance will result in termination. The guards moved down the corridor checking each cell. When they reached Minyu, they stopped. One leaned close to the barrier, its multiple eyes studying him. This one has the animal companion. The buyers find such attachments amusing. It may increase his value. Max sat beside Minyu, looking calm. Inside, Minyu's mind was racing. 6 hours, that was their window. After the guards left, they met again. This time, all 6 humans crowded into Minyu's cell. It was risky, but they needed to finalize the plan. 6 hours, Minyu said. Sora, how long do you need? 2 hours to prepare the compound, maybe less if Bowie helps me with the chemical extraction. I'll help, Bowie said immediately. Haiyan Wu, you and I will go for the armory. Jiho, you're our translator. If we run into guards, you do the talking. Yuna, you coordinate, keep track of everyone's position. What about Max? Yuna asked. Minyu looked at his dog. Max's tail wagged slightly like he knew he was being discussed. Max is our secret weapon. The guards still think he's harmless. He can move in places we can't, create distractions when we need them. And Minyu paused. If it comes to a fight, he's trained for it. They waited until the ship's lights dimmed for night cycle. Then they moved. Minyu used the stolen control rod to open all the cells. Silently, the 6 humans gathered in the corridor. Max took point, moving ahead to scout, his ears swiveled, tracking every sound. Sora and Bowie went one direction, toward the medical storage area. The rest headed down toward the lower levels where the armory waited. The ship was quieter at night, but not empty. Guards still patrolled, though fewer of them. Max would stop, look back at the group, and they'd freeze. A guard would pass, then Max would move forward. Again, they reached a junction. 3 corridors branched off. Haiyan Wu pointed left. That way, I remember. They moved carefully, staying close to the walls. The ship's architecture was designed for creatures with 4 legs, not 2. Some corridors had strange angles that made walking difficult. Max barked softly. Guard appeared ahead, standing at a door. The armory door. Just one. Haiyan Wu whispered, we can take him. No, Jiho said, let me try something. He stepped forward, making his footsteps loud and obvious. The guard spun, weapon rising. Jiho raised his hands and made clicking sounds. Kreeth words he'd learned, lost, confused, compliant. Prisoners seeking return to cell. The guard's mandibles clicked. It lowered its weapon slightly, studying Jiho with suspicion. That's when Max struck. Dog came from the side, low and fast. He'd circled around using a parallel corridor. Max hit the guard's rear legs. With his full weight, the alien toppled backward, clicking in alarm. Minyu and Haiyan Wu rushed forward. Minyu slammed the control rod against the guard's head, where Yuna had said their main neural cluster was located. The guard went still. Armory. Now Haiyan Wu used the unconscious guard's control rod on the door. It opened, revealing racks of weapons, strange designs built for alien hands, but weapons nonetheless. They grabbed what they could carry. Haiyan Wu studied each one, figuring out how they worked. This one's an energy weapon. Point and press here. This one fires projectiles, and this, he held up a grenade-like sphere. This is probably an explosive, I think. Take them all, Minyu said. They loaded up. As they turned to leave, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. They found the guard. Yuna said, we need to move. They ran behind them, clicking. Footsteps multiplied. The Krelith were mobilizing. Max led them through the corridors, taking turns that didn't make sense until suddenly they were at a cargo elevator. Minyu pressed the control rod against the panel. The elevator opened. They piled inside. As the doors closed, they saw guards rounding the corner, weapons raised. Energy blasts hit the closing doors, leaving scorch marks. The elevator rose. "Where are we going?" Jiho asked. "Up," Minyu said. "To the bridge. We end this now." "That's suicide," Yuna said. "Cliffvar will have his best guards there. You have a better idea." Yuna opened her mouth, then closed it. She checked her communicator. They'd taken them from the armory. Sora and Bowie are in position. They've released the compound into the life support system. The Krellith in the lower levels are already feeling it. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto chaos. Guards were everywhere, but they were moving slowly. Some were clutching their shells, mandibles clicking in distress. Sora's compound was working. "Forward," Minyu shouted. They fought their way through. The stolen weapons were clumsy in human hands, but they worked. Guards fell. Some were just incapacitated. Others wouldn't get up. Max was everywhere at once. A brown blur that attacked and retreated, distracted and defended. When one guard aimed a weapon at Yuna, Max was there, jaws clamping on the alien's weapon arm. When another tried to flank Haiyan Wu, Max tripped it with surgical precision. Aliens finally understood. This wasn't a pet, this was a warrior. "Kill the animal," one guard commanded. 3 guards turned their weapons on Max. Minyu's heart stopped, but the dog was faster. He dodged the first shot, rolled under the second, and leaped at the third guard with a snarl that echoed through the corridor. His jaws found the weak point where the guard's shell met its neck joint. The bridge doors were ahead, massive, sealed, and probably locked. "The control rod won't work on these," Haiyan Wu said. "Their command level security. Then we make them open it." Minyu grabbed a guard who was struggling to breathe, affected by Sora's compound. He dragged the alien to the door's communication panel. "Tell them to open up. Tell them you need help." Jiho translated. The guard clicked into the panel, its voice weak. For a moment nothing happened. Then the massive doors began to open. Overseer Cliffvar stood in the center of the bridge, surrounded by his command staff, his multiple eyes fixed on the humans. "Impossible," his translator said. "You are primitives. You are specimens." Minyu raised his stolen weapon, aiming it at the overseer. Max stood beside him, lips pulled back, showing teeth. The dog's growl was low and continuous. "We're not specimens," Minyu said. "We're humans, and this is our dog. You should have studied us better." Behind them, Jiho was already at a communication console, his fingers flying. "I'm sending a distress call. Human frequencies, if there are any of our ships nearby. They won't arrive in time." Clifford said, "I will activate the self-destruct. We will all die." "No," Yuna said. She held up a control rod. "We took the command codes from your guards. You're locked out of your own systems." The overseer's mandibles clicked rapidly. For the first time, the alien looked uncertain. From the corridor behind them, footsteps approached. Human footsteps. Sora and Bowie appeared, looking exhausted but triumphant. "Lower levels are secured," Sora reported. "Most of the guards are down," and Bowie said, with a smile, "I found the bridge recordings, everything these aliens did. We have proof." A new sound echoed Through the ship, a hailing signal. Jiho's face lit up. It's a human patrol. Ship, they received our signal. There. 3 minutes out, Minyu kept his weapon. Trained on Cliffar, but he felt something. Loosen in his chest. They'd done it. Against all odds, 6 humans and 1 dog had taken an alien slave ship, Max's. Tail wagged once. They'd won the human patrol ship, Star Guardian, docked with the Krelith vessel exactly 4 minutes. After Jiho's distress call went out, its crew came aboard ready for a fight. Weapons drawn, expecting to rescue prisoners from alien slavers. Instead, they found 6 humans holding the bridge, with 47 freed prisoners from other cells scattered throughout the ship, and an alien crew that looked defeated and sick. The patrol ship's captain, a woman named Commander Park, stood on the bridge staring at the scene. Her eyes moved from the captive overseer Cliffar to Minyu to the dog sitting calmly beside him. Report, she said simply. Minyu straightened, his old military bearing returning. Sir, we were captured 6 days ago from the cargo ship Horizon's Edge. The Krelith were transporting us to a slave auction at the hub station. We organized a resistance using available resources and took control of the ship. Commander Park blinked. Available resources? Yes, sir. Minyu gestured to the group. Dr. Sora created a biochemical agent to incapacitate the Krelith. Specialist Hun Wu secured weapons from their armory. Jiho provided translation and communication expertise. Yuna analyzed their weaknesses. Bowie handled technical systems, and Max, Minyu's hand dropped to the dog's head. Max provided reconnaissance and tactical support. Commander looked at Max. The dog's tail wagged. Your dog took down alien slavers? Yes, sir. For a long moment, Commander Park said nothing. Then, incredibly, she laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. I need to hear this whole story, but first, we have a situation to secure. She turned to her crew. Arrest all Krevil personnel. Medical team, check all freed prisoners, and someone get these people real food. The next hours were chaos. Medical staff examined everyone. The freed prisoners, 47 people from a dozen different captured ships, were given treatment, food, and blankets. Many were in shock. Some cried, others just sat quietly, unable to believe they were free. Sora worked alongside the Star Guardians medical team, helping treat the worst cases. Her compound had made the Krelith sick but hadn't killed any of them. The aliens would recover just in time to face trial. Hyan Wu stayed on the bridge, helping the patrol ship security team secure the Krelith vessel systems. His knowledge of alien weapons proved useful. The Star Guardian's weapons officer kept looking at him with new respect. Bao and Jiho worked together to extract data from the ship's computers. They found records of dozens of raids, hundreds of captured sentients, and a network of slave markets that stretched across 3 sectors. This is bigger than we thought, Jiho said, looking at the data. The Krelith have been doing this for years. Commander Park stood beside them, reading the information. Her face grew harder with each file. This evidence will shut down their entire operation. You've done more than save yourself. You've saved thousands. Yuna was giving her xenobiology report to the science officer. The Krelith operate on pure hierarchy. They don't understand cooperation between equals. That's why they couldn't predict our action. They studied us as individuals, but never considered what we could do as A team and the dog, the science. Officer asked, taking notes. Yuna smiled. That's humanity's secret. Weapon, for 40,000 years we've lived. With dogs we hunt together, we fight. Together we trust each other. Completely, the Krelith saw Max as a pet, a weakness they never understood. He was a partner. 3 days later, they arrived at the nearest human station, a military outpost called Haven Point. The survivors were transferred to proper facilities, medical care, counseling. Contact with families, the Krelith were handed over to galactic authorities. Minyu spent hours in debriefing sessions explaining every detail of the capture and escape. Officers from multiple agencies wanted to hear the story. Each time Minyu told it simply and clearly, each time they looked at Max with wonder. On the 4th day, Commander Park called them all to a conference room. All 6 of the main group, Minyu, Yuna, Bowie, Jiho, Hanwoo, and Sora. Max sat beside Minyu's chair. I wanted you to know, the commander began, that your actions have had significant impact. The evidence you recovered has led to 17 arrests of Krelith traders and the shutdown of 4 major slave markets. You've also sparked a galaxy-wide discussion about sentient rights and the treatment of lesser species. She pulled up a holographic display. News feeds from dozens of worlds scrolled past, headlines in various languages. Some Minyu could read, others he couldn't. Humans and dog defeat alien slavers. The Krelith underestimated Earth's warriors. Humanity's best friend proves value in combat. Your heroes, Commander Park said. All of you, Jiho shifted uncomfortably. We just wanted to survive. That's what makes you heroes, the commander replied. You didn't accept defeat, you didn't wait for rescue, you saved yourselves. And 41 others. She turned to Minyu. Specifically, the military wants to study your methods, how you coordinated using Max as a courier, how you maintained morale in captivity, how 6 people with no preparation managed to take a ship with 40 crew members. It wasn't just us, Minyu said, it was Max. The Krelith gave us an advantage by underestimating him. That advantage came from the bond between you. That's what we want to understand, Commander Park smiled. Several alien species have reached out. They want to know more about human-canine partnerships. Some are even asking if they could develop similar relationships with their own species animals. Yuna laughed. It took 40,000 years for humans and dogs to develop this bond. You can't create that overnight. No, the commander agreed, but you can start, and that's what your story has inspired. They were each given commendations, medals, and certificates that recognized their courage. Hien Wu was offered immediate reinstatement to the military. At a higher rank, Sora was recruited by the Medical Research Division. Bowie received job offers from 3 engineering firms. Jiho was asked to join the diplomatic corps as a xenolinguist. But the biggest ceremony was for Max, in a formal hall on Haven Point with cameras broadcasting across human space and beyond. Max was recognized as a combat veteran. He received a medal designed specifically for him, a gleaming disc that hung from his collar. The officer who presented it knelt down to Max's level for exceptional service, bravery in combat, and demonstrating the very best of the human-canine bond. Thank you, Max. Max's tail wagged. He licked the officer's hand, making the Audience laugh. Minyu stood beside him, wearing his own medal, as cameras flashed and people applauded. He scratched Max's ears and whispered, "Good boy, very good boy." That evening they all gathered in Minyu's quarters, the full group plus Commander Park. They shared a meal, real food, and for the first time in weeks, they could relax. "What will you do now?" Sora asked Minyu. He'd been thinking about that. "I don't know. Go back to cargo piloting. Maybe take Max somewhere quiet. After all this, you want quiet." Hyen-Woo grinned, especially after all this. Yuna leaned forward. "The research division wants me to study more alien species, learn how they think, what they value. They think it'll help prevent situations like this." She looked around the table. "They said I could bring a team." "Are you asking?" Bowie said. "I'm asking." Jay nodded immediately. "I'm in." "Me too," Sora said. "Someone needs to keep you all healthy." Hyen-Woo looked at Minyu. "What about you too?" Minyu looked at Max. The dog met his eyes. In that moment, Minyu saw everything they'd been through together: training, exercises years ago, combat missions, the long months after he'd left the service when Max had helped him heal from wounds both physical and mental. And now this, the greatest challenge they'd ever faced. "Someone needs to watch your backs," Minyu said finally. "Make sure you don't get captured by aliens again." Everyone laughed. They talked late into the night, making plans, telling stories, building something new from the bonds they'd formed in captivity. Outside the window, ships came and went from Haven Point, carrying news of their story. Across the galaxy, the word was spreading. Humanity had a secret weapon that couldn't be quantified on any scanner or measured by any test. It was loyalty, trust, the bond between two species that chose each other 40,000 years ago and never looked back. Across the galaxy, other species were taking notice. The Krevlith had made a critical error. They'd studied humanity's tools and technology, but they'd never studied humanity's heart. A week later, Minyu received a message. It was from the diplomatic corps requesting permission to use their story in first contact training so that others might learn. The message said, "What makes humanity truly strong?" Minyu wrote back a simple reply: "Use it and make sure they understand. It's not just about humans, it's about the partnerships we build, the trust we give, the loyalty we earn. That's what makes us dangerous to those who would enslave others. Not our weapons, not our technology, but the fact that we're never alone." He attached a photo to the message. It showed him sitting in his quarters, Max's head resting on his lap, the dog's eyes half closed in contentment. Two warriors resting after battle, two friends bound by 40,000 years of shared history. The message sent somewhere out there, someone would read it and understand. Max yawned, showing all his teeth. Minyu smiled, ready for the next adventure. He asked the dog. Max's tail thumped against the floor. Always together, they looked out at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers, but whatever came next, they would face it the same way they'd faced everything else together, because across the galaxy, aliens might underestimate the odd human custom of keeping dogs, but those who tried to exploit that perceived weakness learned a hard truth. Humanity's best friend wasn't a weakness at all, he was their greatest strength.